Hello there my Jedi and Sith friends, my Mandalorians, my Megalorians, and I think I see a couple of Stormtroopers walking in, so we should probably, get started on this and wrap up pretty fast. But welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your friend, and your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. And today, we've got some pretty interesting Star Wars news, a few rumours that have been circulating which I do personally think are bogus, but they are worth addressing, because I believe Lucasfilm is making some pretty important changes, but they're not the ones you might think. So make sure you hit the big subscribe button down below, ring the bell for notifications, but no more jibber jabber, let's dive straight in. So over the last 2 months, just before The Mandalorian and Grogu came out and people were making all kinds of box office predictions, rumours have been abound that Lucasfilm is making some big changes to the sequel trilogy. You're never gonna get a retcon, you're never gonna see episodes 7, 8, and 9 being wiped out. Once again, something people have been saying for years at this point, they're gonna do something with the world between worlds, but the reality is, those rumours go against the explicit words of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, who since have affirmed that, despite what fans want, all roads lead to episode 7. We're not getting a separate divergent timeline, you're not getting a different Luke, the one on Ahsoka is not a clone, and for the post-episode 9 stuff, as Jeff Snyder reported, they are going to make episodes 10, 11, and 12. And I think there's a 99.9% chance all of the sequel characters are coming back. Rey, Poe, Finn, BB-8, they're all going to be part of the Simon Kinberg trilogy. Even if a lot of people want a retcon, it doesn't seem like that's in the cards. However, what does seem to have gone under the radar is the fact that they are making some changes to the sequels. Not the movies themselves, they're staying put, but the time period. When Jon Favreau said Ahsoka Season 2 is going to have some sequel elements, combined with the fact Dave Filoni wants to do more New Republic projects, I think they're trying to do what the Clone Wars did to the prequel trilogy but for the sequels. I think they're trying to salvage the timeline's reputation, how fans perceive it. And it's ironic because we know this approach can be a double-edged sword. You can actually end up doing more damage and create problems within the story itself. If they try to make too many fixes, it can actually worsen the trilogy. Because if they do make Luke Skywalker this absolute legend that we see in some books of the expanded universe, not all of them by the way, he did grieve, he did have his doubts, his problems, but let's say he's entirely OP. It's just gonna make his exile look worse. He was amazing in Mando against the Dark Troopers. He's building his academy, Grogu was the first student, Ben Solo's going to be taken on soon, and with rumours he's going to be back in upcoming projects, the more fans get to like this Luke, the more time we spend with him, the less they're going to like him in The Force Awakens. I know there are fans who like old grumpy Luke, those who say he's entirely in character, completely the way he was in the original trilogy, but unless they explain, the loss of a wife, or more reasons why he went into exile, the loss of his nephew to the dark side just doesn't feel enough. Not for that Luke. And for this reason, a lot of fans think the best route is a retcon, that you can't dance around the sequels if they are always going to exist. And in regards to the Clone Wars and the prequel trilogy, well, there are those fans who say the animated show did make things worse. For instance, I'm still not a fan of Anakin facing Dooku 5 separate times between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. When Anakin tells him that his powers have doubled since the last time they met, the implication is that the last time was on Geonosis, not during the actual Clone Wars. So they do have to be careful about this. They want to lessen the blow in the build up to episodes 7, 8, and 9, round off the corners, take off the edge, whatever you want to call it. They're essentially trying to make it make sense. And this concept is nothing new. This is something we spoke about after The Mandalorian Season 2, and even the Book of Boba Fett. And inadvertently they're hoping that, in a few years' time, we look upon The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker with a different lens. And they've been doing similar things in recent shows, giving us some background sequel characters, a couple of planets like Dakar, and the effect it's supposed to have is to make the sequels feel like it's part of the wider universe that fans love. A sneaky, very underhanded way of getting us to make peace with those films, and it forces us to get used to those worlds, those species, being a part of the Star Wars that we do enjoy. I'm just talking about from the perspective of someone who doesn't like 7, 8, and 9. And they're doing more and more of this, combining OT and prequel trilogy elements with those from the sequels. It's just part of what Star Wars is, but it's becoming more and more overt. In the past, this idea was just fan conjecture, but given the fact Dave Filoni wants to do more New Republic projects, animated, Mandoverse projects, I see the bigger plan at play. And today, my friends, we have even more proof this is what they're trying to do. Is it going to work though? honestly I think fans are divided about this. You have one camp which says, it doesn't matter if they're trying to salvage the image of the sequels, as long as those films exist, all roads lead to episode 7. It's pointless unless there's a retcon. And then you have fans who say, well, I might not like the sequel trilogy, but I'm gonna enjoy the Mandoverse and Ahsoka Season 2 for what it is. But in a couple of new releases, my friends, Lucasfilm is already making the sequel time period a bit more palatable for original trilogy and prequel fans. You see, we're just a couple of weeks away from a new publishing initiative. As you know, the High Republic is done, and in its place, we're getting an array of tie-in books like Star Wars Legacy and some genre books. And the first is a romance adventure titled Eyes Like Stars. It's a young adult love story with a Star Wars backdrop. And I've read the preview, and it's clear that this isn't my kind of Star Wars book, and that's fine. But this one is set just before the sequel trilogy, 18 months before The Force Awakens, and instead of using planets like Jakku or Dakar, Kijimi, Starkiller Base, the entire book uses planets from the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. And I've noticed the same thing with some of their other sequel releases. The same can be said about recent comics, some of the Disney parks, the Star Tour rides. They're increasingly blending the sequel aesthetic with the Star Wars from the George Lucas days. And like I said, they're going to continue doing this in the on-screen content. But one thing I'm kind of concerned about is they're making the presence calling out to Baylan linked to Palpatine. Palpatine's essence is a big part of the new book, Secrets of the Sith. So I do worry about that link. I hope they connect it to something like Abeloth or some kind of ancient Dathomirian presence, but I don't want more Palpatine. I understand stuff like the origins of the First Order, Hux's Project Necromancer, but I don't want the Baylan stuff to be connected to that. Don't be surprised if we eventually see a young Ben Solo, or even Admiral Holdo working with the New Republic. They brought her back for War of the Bounty Hunters, and that was entirely set during the original trilogy. Upon reflection, I think she's the canon version of Winter. Fans of the original Thrawn trilogy know what I'm talking about. And while I thought Leia's friend from the Kenobi show was going to be Winter, she's been given a separate name. I think they're just trying to make some of these characters, planets, and concepts a bit more likable. They're buttering us up for the fact that the sequels are not going to be erased, but they are going to be expanded upon. And don't be surprised if in the Simon Kinberg trilogy they do exactly the same thing. It's the return of Rey, Finn and Poe, but with a new aesthetic. If they are making episodes 10, 11 and 12, and it's not J.J. Abrams and it's not Rian Johnson, maybe it's a fresh new start for these characters, and they're gonna feel very different, written in a much better way than they were in the last trilogy. But let me show you this. In the new book, Eyes Like Stars, these are the planets they're gonna visit. This is their travel itinerary, and at number 1 we have Coruscant, a planet which has been brought back for the Mandoverse, but wasn't included in the sequels. We had Hosnian Prime, and originally J.J. Abrams did want that to be Coruscant. The level of disrespect towards the prequel trilogy.
So uncivilized.
But for this book, it's back. Day 2, Alderaan. This one was a bit confusing at first because the Death Star destroyed it, and it's long gone at this point, but I think they're talking about the new Alderaan, or the monument on Coruscant. Then on day 4 they go to Naboo, a planet which made its live-action return in Andor Season 2. Day 5 is indeed a travel day, and then on day 6, they go back to Tatooine. Stretch your legs as the Starfarer refuels. Visit the markets and taste the local cuisine. Later, attend a tour of the moisture farm like the one Luke Skywalker grew up on. He's a legend of the galaxy at this point. Then day 7, Geonosis, which Disney brought back in Star Wars Rebels. Day 8 is Yavin 4. Day 9, Kashyyyk. Then day 10, Mimban. Then day 11, and this is a big one, Gorman. That's right, Gorman during the sequel trilogy. I've seen a few fans take issue with this. Long after the Empire's massacre, it's inhabitable again, maybe thanks to the New Republic. Come with us to a city once rich in silk and twill, and learn about the Imperial's slow encroachment into everyday Gore life, resulting in a massacre of peaceful civilians. A quiet mourning ceremony will take place afterwards. Day 12 is Endor, and Day 14 Return to Coruscant. None of those planets originate in the sequels. And another huge update, another clue they're trying to rehabilitate the sequels, is in another upcoming book. In Star Wars Legacy, set between episodes 8 and 9, Rey goes to the Jedi Temple on Tython, which originated in the expanded universe, but features in Mando Season 2. There's also exploration of the sacred Jedi texts, and the synopsis teases connections to the ancient Jedi. So like I said, there's a deliberate effort to to make huge connections to Star Wars, which I guess the majority of fans do like. I'm not saying everyone hates the sequels, they do have their fans, but I would say there are far more people who enjoy the originals, and even the prequels, even if they are still controversial. But what do you think? In what ways do you think the New Republic projects like Ahsoka are going to connect to the sequels? And is this the best strategy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, my friends.